You are sitting there wondering why the effort you poured into her felt like water poured into a sieve. You were the man who checked in, the man who listened, the man who was consistent when the rest of the world was chaotic. Yet, instead of being met with deeper affection, you were met with a slow, agonizing slide into invisibility. I know that pain. It is a quiet, suffocating realization that the more you give, the less you are seen. But today, I am going to peel back the curtain and show you exactly what is happening in the female mind during this process, because it is not what you think. It is not that she is cold or that she lacks a heart. It is that the psychology of value is dictated by the laws of scarcity and the mechanics of human adaptation. When you are always there, you become the furniture of her life. You are the lamp in the corner that provides light every single night without fail. She does not wake up and thank the lamp for being there. She only notices the lamp when the bulb burns out and she is suddenly stumbling in the dark. This is the psychological threshold we are going to explore today. We are going to talk about why your absence is the only thing that can reestablish your value, and how the boundaries you set now are the only things that will save your future self from this cycle of being taken for granted. To understand why a woman begins to overlook a good man, we have to look at the concept of hedonic adaptation. This is the process where humans become accustomed to a positive stimulus until it no longer registers as a peak experience. When you began your relationship or your interaction with her, your attention was a prize. It was new, it was validating, and it was exciting. But as you became more consistent and more available without requiring anything in return, her brain began to categorize your presence as a constant. In her subconscious, you became a resource that was guaranteed. And the moment a resource is guaranteed, the human mind stops exerting effort to secure it. This is why you feel like you are chasing a ghost. You are trying to use more of the same behavior, consistency, and kindness to fix a problem that was actually caused by that very behavior being too accessible. I want you to imagine a woman named Julia. Julia was dating a man named David. David was everything a man is told to be. He was kind, he was on time, he texted her good morning every day, and he was always ready to help her move, fix her car, or listen to her vent about her boss for 3 hours. At first, Julia loved it. She felt safe. But after 6 months, something shifted. She started responding to his texts 4 hours late. She started canceling plans because she was tired, knowing he would stay home and wait for her anyway. She started looking at other men not because they were better than David, but because they represented a question mark, while David represented a period. David had become too predictable. His value had plummeted in her eyes, not because he lacked quality, but because he lacked boundaries. He had no edge to his presence. He was a safety net that she knew would never move, so she stopped looking down to see if it was still there. This is the psychological state of complacency. It is a dangerous place for a man to be because it feels like you are doing everything right while the results are telling you everything is wrong. The shift happens the moment you decide to stop being the safety net. When David finally realized that his energy was being drained with no return on investment, he stopped the morning texts. He stopped being the therapist for her work problems. He didn't do it out of anger or to play a game. He did it because he finally valued his own time more than her fleeting attention. And that is when the silent alarm in Julia's mind went off. The first 48 hours of a man's absence are characterized by a woman's confusion. She expects the pattern to continue. When the morning text doesn't arrive, she doesn't miss him yet. She is simply curious. She checks her phone, thinks maybe he's busy, and goes about her day. But by day 3, the curiosity turns into a subtle form of anxiety. The constant in her life has vanished. The lamp has burned out. This is the stage where the subconscious begins to reevaluate every single thing you provided. Because she can no longer count on your presence, she is forced to remember what that presence felt like. She remembers the way you handled her stress, the way you made her feel protected, and the way you were the only person who truly understood her. But she only remembers these things because they are currently missing. This is the power of the void. You cannot convince a woman of your value through words. You can only allow her to experience the reality of your absence. This is where most men fail. They step back for 2 days, feel the silence, get scared that she will forget them, and then they rush back in with a double text. When you do that, you hit the reset button on her psychological process. You prove to her that the resource was never actually gone, it was just glitching. To truly trigger a realization of value, the absence must be absolute, and it must be rooted in a genuine boundary. You have to reach a point where you are okay with the possibility that she might never come back. If you are just faking absence to get a reaction, she will sense the performative nature of it. But if you are stepping back because you have realized that your value is not being respected, that energy carries a weight that is impossible to ignore. Women are highly intuitive to the underlying intent of a man's silence. When a man is silent because he is pouting, it feels weak. When a man is silent because he is busy building his life and protecting his peace, it feels powerful. This is the difference between a silent treatment and moving on in silence. One is a plea for attention. The other is a demonstration of self-worth. As the days turn into weeks, the woman who took you for granted begins to enter the comparison phase. She looks at the other men in her life, or the men who are trying to get her attention, and she starts to notice the gaps. She realizes that while other men are flashy, they aren't consistent. She realizes that while other men are exciting, they aren't safe. She starts to crave the very thing she once found boring. The stability of your character, which she once overlooked, suddenly becomes the most attractive quality in the world. This is because the human heart is designed to want what it cannot easily have. It is a frustrating reality of our nature, but it is one you must master if you want to be respected. Let's talk about the biological aspect of this. When you are constantly pursuing a woman and making yourself overly available, you are essentially telling her biology that you are captured territory. There is no biological incentive for her to invest more energy into you because you are already fully integrated into her life without her having to work for it. However, when you step back and establish boundaries, you reactivate the pursuit drive. You become a frontier again. You are no longer a certainty, you are a possibility. This shift in status triggers a release of dopamine in her brain when she thinks about you. She starts to wonder where you are, who you are with, and if you have found someone who values you more than she did. That uncertainty is the fertile ground where attraction grows. Without uncertainty, there is no tension. Without tension, there is no desire. You have to understand that as a man, your greatest currency is your attention. If you give it away for free to someone who treats it like garbage, you are effectively devaluing yourself. Think of it like a luxury brand. A brand like Rolex doesn't stay valuable by putting a watch on every wrist in the city. It stays valuable by being difficult to obtain. If a Rolex was given out for free at the grocery store, nobody would care about the craftsmanship or the history. They would just throw it in a drawer. You have been giving away your Rolex attention at the grocery store, and you are wondering why she isn't treating it like a masterpiece. The moment you stop the distribution, the value of the stock you have left begins to rise. This brings us to the most difficult part of the process, the test. When a woman realizes she is losing a man she took for granted, she will rarely come back with a grand apology. Human ego is a powerful thing. Instead, she will send a breadcrumb. This is a low-effort text like, "Hey," or "I saw this and thought of you," or a like on an old photo. This is a probe. She is trying to see if the safety net is still there. She wants to know if she can still have your attention whenever she wants it without having to change her behavior. If you respond instantly with a long, emotional paragraph, you have lost. You have just told her that the Rolex is still free for the taking. But if you remain composed, if you stay within your boundaries, and if you require her to actually work to earn her way back into your life, the dynamic finally begins to balance out. You have to be the man who is willing to walk away and never look back. That is the only man a woman will truly respect in the long run. I want to speak to the guys who are currently in the thick of this pain. You might be feeling like you've lost the best thing that ever happened to you. You might be replaying every conversation, wondering if you should have been even more supportive. Stop. The reason she pulled away isn't because you didn't do enough. It's because you did too much for someone who was doing too little. You were overfunctioning in the relationship to compensate for her underfunctioning. This creates an imbalance that kills attraction. By stepping back, You are not being mean. You are simply returning the energy she is giving you. This is the law of reciprocity. If she gives 20%, you give 20%. If she gives 0, you give 0. When you continue to give 100% while she gives 0, you are teaching her that she can treat you poorly and still receive the best of you. You are literally training her to take you for granted. The psychological process of her missing you is actually a process of her unlearning the bad habits you helped her create. She has to unlearn the idea that you are a permanent, immovable object. She has to learn that your presence is a privilege that can be revoked at any time. This realization often comes with a heavy dose of regret. She will look back at the times she ignored your calls, or the times she was dismissive of your feelings, and she will feel a sting of shame. That shame is necessary. It is the friction that causes growth. If you take her back the second she feels a little bit of regret, she doesn't learn the lesson. She needs to sit in the silence long enough to understand that the world is a much colder place without your warmth. There is a story of a guy named Alex who had been the fallback plan for a girl named Chloe for 3 years. Every time her flings with bad boys failed, she would call Alex, and he would be there to comfort her. He thought he was winning her over with his loyalty. In reality, he was just her emotional dumping ground. One day, Alex had enough. He started focusing on his fitness, his career, and he actually started dating other women who appreciated him. When Chloe called him the next time she was sad, he didn't pick up. He sent a text 3 hours later saying, "I'm actually out right now. I'll catch up with you later." That was the first time in 3 years she didn't have immediate access to him. She was livid at first. She called him selfish, but then she couldn't stop thinking about him. She started looking at his social media and seeing him happy without her. The Alex in her head, the loyal, boring Alex, was replaced by a man who had options and a life. She realized that she had been sitting on a gold mine while looking for silver. She ended up chasing him for months, but the only reason she did was because he finally had the balls to prioritize himself. This is the insider revelation. Women do not want a man they can walk all over. They might say they want a nice guy who does everything for them, but what they actually crave is a man who has enough self-respect to say no. Boundaries are the skeletal system of a relationship. Without them, the relationship is just a pile of mush that eventually rots. When you establish a boundary, you are telling her, "This is where I begin and where you end." You are defining yourself as an individual. This individuality is what makes you attractive. When you have no boundaries, you are just an extension of her, and nobody is attracted to their own shadow. You need to understand that her process of missing you is deeply tied to her seeing you as a man of status. And status isn't just about money or looks. It is about the way you carry yourself and the way you value your own time. A man who is always available has 0 status. A man who is willing to lose a woman to maintain his dignity has the highest status of all. This is the psychological reality that no one tells you. They tell you to fight for her and to never give up. But sometimes the most powerful way to fight for a relationship is to stop fighting and walk away. If it is meant to be, your absence will be the catalyst that forces her to do the work. If it isn't meant to be, your absence will be the bridge that leads you to someone who will value you from day one. You have to stop being afraid of the silence. The silence is your friend. It is in the silence that her thoughts of you will grow. It is in the silence that she will have to face the consequences of her actions. If you fill that silence with your voice, you are saving her from the very discomfort she needs to feel to change. Let her feel it. Let her wonder. Let her regret. This is the only path to a relationship built on mutual respect rather than one built on one-sided sacrifice. You might be wondering, what if she never misses me? What if she just moves on? That is a risk you have to take. But let me ask you this. If she can move on that easily without ever feeling the loss of your character, was she ever really yours to begin with? If your presence meant so little that your absence is a relief to her, then you were in a prison, not a partnership. Stepping back is the ultimate litmus test for the soul of your relationship. It reveals the truth, and the truth, however painful, is the only thing that will set you free to find a woman who sees you for exactly who you are. I want you to look in the mirror today and realize that you are a man of value. You have a heart that is capable of great loyalty, and you have a mind that is capable of great things. Do not let that be wasted on someone who treats you like an option. The psychological shift she experiences when you walk away is not a trick. It is a restoration of the natural order. It is you taking your power back and placing it where it belongs, in your own hands. When a woman sees a man who has reclaimed his power, she doesn't just miss him, she admires him. And admiration is the foundation of all long-term love. You have been looking for her approval for so long that you forgot to seek your own. Today is the day that changes. You are going to stop chasing, you are going to stop explaining, and you are going to start existing for yourself. Whether she realizes your value today, tomorrow, or a year from now is irrelevant. What matters is that you realize your value right now. Because once you truly understand your worth, you will never again be a man who can be taken for granted. You will be a man who is sought after, a man who is respected, and a man who knows that his absence is just as powerful as his presence. This is the secret to female psychology that few men ever master. It's not about being a jerk, it's about being a man of substance who refuses to be treated as a shadow. As she sits in the quiet of her room, noticing the lack of your name on her screen, she is beginning a journey of rediscovery. She is rediscovering who you are, and more importantly, what she lost. This is a journey she has to take alone. You cannot hold her hand through it. You have to be over the horizon, building your kingdom, and letting the echoes of your success reach her ears. If she decides to follow those echoes back to you, she must do so with a new level of appreciation and a willingness to meet your standards. If not, you will already be so far ahead that you won't even notice she's gone. This is the perspective of a man who has mastered his own emotions. This is the perspective that changes everything. Remember, her realization of your value is a slow burn process. It doesn't happen in a heartbeat. It happens in the 1,000 small moments where life is harder because you aren't there to make it easier. It happens when she has a bad day and realizes the one person she used to call is no longer an option. It happens when she achieves something great and realizes your smile is the one thing missing from the celebration. Those are the moments that build the bridge back to you. But that bridge can only be built if you stay on your side of the river. Do not cross it to meet her halfway. Make her come all the way to you. That is the only way she will ever truly value the destination. You have the strength to do this. You have the character to hold the line. The pain you feel now is just the breaking of an old, weak pattern. On the other side of this pain is a version of you that is untouchable, a version of you that commands respect simply by existing. This is the psychological evolution of a man who knows his worth. Stay strong, stay consistent with yourself, and let the silence do the work that your words never could. You are the architect of your own value. Never let anyone else hold the blueprints. This realization is the turning point. From this moment on, you are no longer the man who waits. You are the man who moves. And as you move forward, the world, and the women in it, will have no choice but to take notice of the man they once thought they could afford to lose. They will realize, far too late in many cases, that a man like you is not a recurring resource, but a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. That realization is their burden to carry, not yours. Your only job is to keep becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of who is there to see it. That is true power. That is true value. And that is exactly what she will miss the most.